When you stop saying, I just want to go back to normal and start saying, all right, I'm ready to be done with this. What's next? That shift in mentality is the first
Yeah.
step to getting out of it. Going back to where you were is is a fool's journey. I have another hot take, and it is that if you drink coffee before you have DPDR, I don't think you should stop drinking coffee when you have DPDR.
If you clicked on this video, you're here for something pretty important. You're not here for the same things that you're going to hear by talking to a doctor or listening to an expert talk on a podcast. You're here to listen to real patients that have been through it themselves, real people who have suffered and real people who have recovered. And by tuning into our new podcast series called A Patient's Perspective, you're going to be introduced to enriching perspectives for life and your recovery. We're hoping to build an anthology of stories that are going to be extremely resourceful for people that are going through a little something. And we're hoping to save you time in your recovery and help you claim a new life that's ahead. We want to help inspire and motivate you to begin a research journey on treatment options that maybe you weren't aware of or maybe you weren't giving enough credit to. And it may be something as simple and effective as nutrition. Periodically, you're going to hear some subtle sound effects like this one. And that's going to signal that there's additional context on the screen that you may want to consider. And in the video's description below, you're going to find full timestamps for all key parts of this interview, including emojis that are going to signal the pivotal parts and key moments of this interview. Also, there's going to be links to studies, books that are available, product options that we think are good quality for the price that you'll pay and have good ingredients. And I'm going to bring everyone's attention to special questions at the end, where we ask everyone that comes on, what are your two types of questions? Where our guests condense down years of wisdom into short, impactful takeaways for you, the listener. And what I'm hoping for is that when you hear them, you're going to be like, wow, that's actually not so bad. In fact, I think I can try picking that up and try this out for myself and see if I can kind of make this my own. We want all of this stuff to help. I'm Tim, this is Two Bloods, One Shroom, and welcome to A Patient's Perspective. Take a moment to review our disclaimer. Pause the screen now and review it if you haven't already. We think that there's a lot of helpful things in this disclaimer that are worth reading. We want to bring attention to the fact that we are not medical experts. And it's always good practice to conduct research and make careful, informed decisions. Always exercise caution and stay safe.
So I've got Ryan invited on for our first ever guest. So Ryan, I appreciate you coming on with us.
Yeah.
How you doing today, by the way?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's Friday, so I mean, everything's winding down for the week. So doing well.
So I'm going to have Ryan start and explain what DPDR is and what the symptoms are like. Could you shine some light on kind of what DPDR is for everyone that doesn't understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So DPDR is short for, I guess it's an acronym for Depersonalization-Derealization. In a nutshell, to the best of our understanding, because brains are weird, right? We don't fully understand the human brain, but we're learning more as we go. It's a dissociative order that is an extremely exaggerated version of the freeze response. So you have fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fawn turns into, excessive people pleasing, or I guess you could call it Stockholm syndrome too, in a way. Fight, you fight. You have anger problems that manifest. Flight, you run away from things, you isolate. The freeze one is interesting though because it's kind of the last stop on the road. So when your mind feels it has exhausted all of its other alternative options, you end up with this freeze response where you're kind of shut down. And what that looks like is they have an understanding of what a dissociative episode is when you're daydreaming or when you kind of zone out, when you're doom scrolling, whatever. But when you are locked in that state, you begin to pick up on things you wouldn't normally pick up on in a normal, regular fleeting dissociative moment. Like if you were daydreaming and someone snapped you out of it, you wouldn't really be bothered by it because you know what's going on, you know what's happening. When you're stuck in this DPDR, the depersonalization aspect of it, because it's kind of two different sides of the same coin, but the DP side of it is you feel foreign to you. So looking in a mirror, you look wrong, and you can't really place what it is about you except that you don't look like you. You feel like you're kind of the passenger in a vehicle versus in control of the ride. So people have described it as, I feel like I'm dead. I feel like I'm in a dream. I feel like I'm in the Matrix. You just don't feel connected to you. Your sense of identity and your visceral connection with reality, the touch, the feel, the smell, all that stuff, it's all dulled. And all it is it's a protective mechanism that the brain kicks in when it's in extremely high levels of stress, and it kind of cuts you off. It kind of snips the cord a little bit to, I guess, how you experience reality or yourself. Derealization is where you feel like you are, I guess, you are you still, but reality seems wrong. So things look cartoonish or exaggerated or two-dimensional. That's a really big one. Everything looks flat, like things don't really have depth to them. Needless to say, being stuck in these situations is terrifying. It is not natural. It is not normal. It's not something you're you're braced for ever. And a lot of people fall into it as a result of either a panic attack or a bad drug experience.
It sounds like those two things are kind of different camps, so to speak. So one of them, you kind of have a massive detachment with yourself, which I can tell you, I experienced a touch of that when I was vitamin D deficient. When my symptoms were growing so bad, I just didn't feel like I was a real person, and it was just a touch of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was bizarre. Very fortunately, those symptoms went away. And then again, there's the realization aspect of it, which is like you're in this fictitious world, almost like a video game. But you describe it like that? Okay.
Yep.
So, which do you experience both of those, or just one?
So I've gone through this now. I've had intermittent little episodes of it, flashes like you described, but they were never extreme enough or I guess long lasting enough to really get me stuck. But
Okay.
my entire life I've had this, and there's been three instances where one was caused by a really abusive relationship, one was caused by a drug, and this most recent one was caused by a combination of stress and a drug. So
Okay.
this time it's been more depersonalization. The derealization is there as well, but it was more internally focused. And I think what you get more of, it's based on two things. It's based on what you're more afraid of. I think that's the most important thing.
Oh.
And then more so, I don't want to say what caused it, because people smoke weed, and I guess it's how you interpret it. Like whatever, and it goes back to the fear thing. Whatever is more frightening to you is the thing your brain locks into as a threat, and it won't let you let go of.
You mentioned that you've had a lot of these symptoms for I think you said the majority of your life. Is that right?
About 31 years, yeah.
Okay. So can you give us a little bit of a background in terms of when did the symptoms maybe onset? Like when did do you believe the story began in terms of the mental health side of things, right? And then just kind of give us an understanding of maybe the timeline of which things happen, maybe these some details of like when these, I guess, triggering events happened and kind of what came of that each time, if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I always had a big imagination as a kid. I didn't have I didn't follow a lot of rules. I like in
Right.
kindergarten, I would kick my shoes off and just lay down when we were supposed to be sitting on our little squares or whatever, and all kinds of stuff. But when I was about 5 years old, I think this was the first instance that I remember it happening. But my dad had undiagnosed spinal meningitis. He didn't know he had it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we had at the house I grew up in, we had a stairwell that kind of looped. It came up, had a flat landing, then looped up again. I watched, and I remember this viscerally. I remember he was coming up the stairs, and then he fell, and he got to the flat part of it, and he was crawling, and then he just collapsed, and he threw up all over the place. And yeah, and I was like I said, I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and so I saw that. I don't really remember the rest. Obviously, he went to the hospital.
Okay.
He recovered, thank God. He was able to, he pulled through it. But shortly after that, I started having panic attacks, and I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I remember the first one. Memory is not a trustworthy, counterpart, but I think I remember the first one. I was coming out of a bath, and all of a sudden, everything just looked like it was made of clay or like paper mache or something. Everything just looked wrong. And of course, I freaked out. I started screaming, and I was crying and all this stuff, and I didn't know what was happening. And eventually, the adrenaline cleared. Everything settled back down, and you kind of come back to baseline. Your body wants to be at stasis. It doesn't want to be in this heightened state of terror. So, panic attacks, they always burn off. That first one burned off, and I just remember being so scared of it. And when you're a kid, your concept of fear is so different than it is as an adult, because you don't have a grasp on things having limitations. And like you
Right.
I mean, especially if you're imaginative, you don't know how bad something can get. So when you're in that state, you feel like you're going insane. And even as a kid, my biggest fear was going blind, quicksand, and going insane. So,
Wow.
yeah, and they just started happening more and more. But they were episodic. They'd come in clusters, right? They'd come in like, there'd be a week or two where I would just get panic attacks because I'd be thinking about them. And I didn't know that then, but I'd be thinking about them and they'd start happening more and more.
I've never personally had a panic attack, but people as adults do that. They think about having a panic attack and they could drive themselves into having one.
Yeah, well, and that's all basically in a nutshell. As a kid, they diagnosed me with generalized anxiety disorder because panic disorder, I don't think became an official diagnosis until after that.
Yeah.
But I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and with episodic panic. I think that was what they used to call it, but it was panic disorder. I became afraid of the feeling, and then that feeling is what ended up persisting. So as I got a little bit older, I kind of got a grip on it because I learned how to live around them. Because I was just like, it's a thing that happens sometimes. They're awful. I hate them, but they always end. And then I got over it. They stopped happening. And so when I made it about probably 8 or 9 years where I'd have them on occasion. If I was really stressed, they'd kind of happen, but they'd always go away. But I got into a really, really bad relationship with a very, very nasty woman, and she broke up with me in a way that was traumatic. I'll say that. So when that happened, they put me immediately on Ativan and Lexapro.
Okay, so and this is your first experience ever with psychiatric meds at this point, right?
No, I wish.
Okay.
So yeah, I probably should have touched on that. So the first thing they did was put me on ADHD meds. I think I got a diagnosis of ADHD, but in that era, it was like the early 90s when everybody had ADD and ADHD.
Yeah.
So I don't know how seriously my parents took it. In hindsight, I have since been, as an adult, re-diagnosed with ADHD, so I wish they'd taken it a little more seriously, but it is what it is. When I got that, I was put on, it was Ritalin first, and then I was put on Risperdal. I don't remember. There was like 5 or 6 of them throughout the span of probably 10 years. But
okay, and constantly kind of trying to change it. I guess change it based upon why were they changing it if you were so young?
There was a handful of them in the beginning where they were just completely missing the mark. Like in the early days, the Ritalin was the one I remember the most. I lost a buttload of weight, and I was down to like, I've always been fairly tall. I'm 6 foot now, and I've always been slightly taller. I should have probably been closer to like 80 pounds. I weighed like 60. I was rail thin.
Oh wow.
So they pulled me off Ritalin for that, and then other ones would cause like depressive episodes, insomnia. Some of them made the panic attacks worse. They were fine tuning it. When I was 13, they landed on one called Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin was still the only drug to this day that was effective.
Okay.
And they thought you cleared it. I was going through therapy, talk therapy as a kid and all this stuff. And they're like, you're good. We can taper you off. You're done. And I'm like, sweet. And I was fine from 13 to 16. I don't think I had any panic attacks. I think I was just like cured, for lack of a better word. But when I got to 16, I met that girl. She was very mentally abusive, and I ended up having panic attacks again. And they put me on Lexapro and Ativan. And Ativan, I'm sure your audience is familiar with it, but just as an aside, Ativan is a benzodiazepine class drug, and it's basically a really, really powerful tranquilizer. The way it works, though, the reason benzos are so effective against panic attacks is because they affect part of your brain that has to do with GABA. They basically shut it off. Like they redirect how your brain responds neurochemically by kind of redirecting it away from GABA and towards, whatever the chemical does to your brain chemically. The problem with that is it's really effective, but your brain very quickly becomes dependent on it, and it's super addictive.
Yeah, that one's from a couple people I follow regarding learning about like tapering protocols and stuff. I believe that one's one of the ones that is a nightmare to get tapered off of.
So yeah, we'll touch back on that in a minute. I have another Ativan story, but
okay.
That first one I started taking the drugs, and then I fell into, I would call my first real episode of DPDR disorder, where it became a thing that I could not live around. I became not even just homebound, but like bedbound. Like this is probably gonna get a little graphic, but I had to like pee in water bottles. I would only eat like sunflower seeds and like beef jerky sticks. I didn't leave my bed. I got up to like, you don't want to like defecate in bed, right? So I would get up and do that. But beyond that, I didn't leave my room. And that was about 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it by the end of it, my room had smelled like a mortuary. It was pretty gnarly. And I had a friend come over and stay with me for a little bit. And he basically lived with me at my parents' house for like 2.5 weeks. And in that time, I didn't realize this then, but I realize it in hindsight now, not focusing on me and isolating and thinking about all the problems that I was having and how unreal I felt, being forced to interact with somebody and talk about like music or talk about cartoons or anime or movies or whatever it was, it put enough of a wedge between my brain and the disordered thinking to allow it to kind of turn off. And I noticed within, like, we're talking 10 days, I started going downstairs. It was right around Thanksgiving. I started going downstairs. I ate with my family. I started going outside again. So I was like, okay, I guess it's just over. You know, I just burned itself out. I didn't put the two together.
You basically were able to kind of transition kind of out of that fog that you're in. How long was it until this, I guess the most recent, didn't you run into this like state, like all these symptoms like again at like a third time? How much time passed before that came about?
So that was the first bad one. I was 16. The second bad one, I was 26. And that was as a result of, there was a lot of traumatic things that had happened, like, and they sort of just piled up. But my brother got assaulted. He was almost killed. My grandma died from lung cancer that had metastasized throughout her entire body. I lost a job. Things were just, a lot of bad things happened in a very short span of time.
Right.
And I got back on Ativan, and the unreal feeling started coming back. And then I tried to cold turkey quit it this time because I was like, it's the drug. If I just stop taking it, it'll stop. And everything got like scary bad to the point where it was like, I remember calling my friend and saying, I need you to take me to a psychiatric hospital because I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm losing my mind. And when she got there, thank God she had the presence of mind that I did not have in that moment. And she said, it was a Saturday. She said, why don't you call a pharmacist since your doctor's office is, closed? And I was like, okay. So I called a pharmacist, explained the situation. The pharmacist, bless her heart, told me, you need to go take a pill. What you're going through right now is basically the early stages of like a seizure. Because I was seeing auras and shit around things, pardon my language.
Okay.
But I was seeing colors and haze around edges, and I was starting to like, it was really weird, man. Like everything felt very tunneled in. Like I had this kind of, these blockers up on my peripheral vision. It was all this stuff. And she's like, that's the earliest stages of a seizure. You need to go take one of the pills. I was like,
right.
Oh my God. So went and took one, and inside of, I'm not even kidding, probably 3 minutes, I was like, it was like I just outran a bear. I almost fell asleep. I was calm. My heart rate went back down, and I was like, oh God. And so I went online to a forum called Benzo Buddies, and I was able to kind of figure out a taper schedule, and the next 3.5, 4 months were just hell on earth. I mean, every day I just wanted to die. I didn't want to go through it.
What made it hell? Because a lot of people go through B.I.N.D. What is it? Benzodiazepine induced something disorder, or basically it's withdrawal, right?
Yeah, it's a gnarly withdrawal. So everything that you're using Ativan for to try and get rid of, like panic, DPDR, whatever else it's there for, generalized anxiety, everything, because the drug is now absent in your system and your GABA levels are so low, you're unbuffered. So everything hits you like 5 times harder. All the stuff you're trying to avoid is now not only there, it's way more intense. It never stops. I developed insomnia. I was sleeping 3 hours at a time. There was a week where I slept a total of 12 hours out of 7 days. It was just, every day was like that, dude. And then one day I remember thinking, I was laying on my couch and I laughed, and I was like, I haven't laughed in like 90 days. It was the first time I was able to like let go a little bit. And then I slept a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer, and then I was a little bit better and a little bit better. I started getting anger problems. Don't know where that came from, but over time, it very, very slowly, like very gradually, started to get better. But it took about 4 months.
Okay, so was there anything in the experience of that withdrawal process that you learned was like that it allowed you to basically kind of get through it or dampen those withdrawal symptoms or help with the process or anything that you kind of picked up from that?
Yeah, it's a heavy thing. It's a heavy thought, but it's the truth of the matter. It's either you can end it or you can suffer through it. And once you've come to that point where you think to yourself, I am seriously contemplating ending my life, feeling dissociative isn't really all that scary anymore. Like, just to be blunt, it's just like I know this doesn't get worse. I know that this leads to only this. This never goes anywhere else. I'm never gonna go crazy. I'm never gonna die from it. I'm never gonna even be hurt from it. It's just really scary. And when you can accept that, fully accept that in your body and your brain, and everybody's on the same page, it starts to just kind of back off.
Did you ever worry that it wasn't going to end, like the symptoms that you were dealing with?
Every waking moment, yeah. And the nature of it is that with DPDR especially, it's very closely tied to OCD in that it dictates every decision you make, and because of that, you're constantly aware of it. So because you're aware of it, you're thinking about it. When you're thinking about it, you're probably afraid of it, and it's this loop. So
It's a loop, right?
and the worst thing for a human mind is to not know the way out, right? To be trapped. And so you just constantly think like, yeah, this is just my life now. Like this is where I'm at.
One of the things that paired us up was actually a post that you made online that
Yeah,
I want to get to because that's a big part of again why we got together. It was kind
sure.
of controversial, so to speak. It was abnormal advice that I think people need to hear. Let's put it that way. But again, there's a lot of people that are listening. They may be in the midst of this themselves. They
Yeah,
may be on medications and suffering or struggling to get off them. They may be on medications and not trying to get off them. And they're just like, when will these symptoms end? What do those people need to hear? What advice do you think that you can maybe offer them, considering you've gone through this yourself already? You know?
yeah. So I want to I got lambasted on Reddit for this, but I want to pre-qualify this by saying these are not original thoughts of mine. I just took them and repackaged them into my own language.
Okay.
I my turning point this go around, because this started for me on June the 5th of this year. I remember the moment I felt it. I remember right when it started, and I thought, oh my dear God, I'm going through it again. When I found there was three things technically that kind of changed it. The first was I found a recommendation to read a book called Hope and Help for Your Nerves by Dr. Claire Weeks. The second was I found a podcast called Disordered with Drew Linsalata and Josh Fletcher, who are therapists in their own respective rights in different places. And then the third one was the Depersonalization Manual by Shaun O'Connor. What most of what I said is it consists of a very boiled down version of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. And what it is you just got to be okay feeling uncomfortable. The more you fight it, what you resist persists. That's the hot line. But the more you fight it, the longer it's going to stick around. And you'll hear stories of people, and there was people on that post that were commenting saying, well, I have a different strand of it, or whatever. I have a different version of DPDR. I've had this for 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, 400 years, whatever it was. It boils down to the same thing. I'm like, because you're still here. The title of the post was "Leave Here Immediately." That was the whole
Right.
thing. You are so focused on this thing that you don't even realize anymore that it's got you trapped. Like, you think this is you doing this. It's not you doing this. This is a fear response doing this to you.
The post that you made, it was a hot take, which is basically like, look, if you're once you figure out that you've got DPDR, and again, there's a lot of doctors that seem to struggle to even diagnose this thing. You may have some information there, but basically, you're like, once you figure it out, you can't be in this subreddit anymore because no one's offering solutions. If anything, you're just exposing yourself to more trauma. Why would you do that to yourself? And can you just kind of shed some light on kind of, I guess, Reddit and the spirit of why people should be getting off of some of these subreddits?
Yeah, that's I want to start by saying that is the nature of the disorder. The reason it sticks so much with people is because A, it's very surreal and scary, but more importantly, everyone that has it, everybody who's gone through it, the first thing we all think is, this is not that. This is something different. This is something worse. This feels too intense to be that. Because they don't have another point of reference, right? Like, you've never been anybody else but yourself. So I want to start by saying that. The other thing people do, specifically in these forums, and I saw this on Benzo Buddies 10 years ago, and I see it on Reddit today, people internalize this disorder and make it part of their identity, and then they almost become tribal in defense of it. And
That can happen.
It happens a lot. What that leads to is people defending, I don't want to call it their victimhood, because that's dismissive, and I don't think it's fully accurate, but they will defend their suffering as if other people don't understand what they're going through. But if you ask them to list their symptoms on paper, we're all dealing with the same thing. It checks all the same boxes.
So the kind of pepper in some thoughts there. I think it was really wise words for you to say, look, you're not being dismissed by any means. You are going through it. I think the most important thing, or one of the most important things that people can realize, or should realize about what they're going through, is that a big part of their identity is going to be getting over it and getting through it, and then not making it their entire life. There's a really awesome story at the other side of this.
Well, I mean, here's the icing on the cake, right? Or I guess the light at the end of the tunnel. When you stop saying, I just want to go back to normal, and start saying, all right, I'm ready to be done with this, what's next? That shift in mentality is the first step to getting out of it. Going back to where you were is a fool's journey, right? Because all you're doing is setting yourself back at the exact point you were when you couldn't handle whatever got you there in the first place.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want to go backwards.
No, and it's just like people who are big into nostalgia stuff. It's like it's cool to cherish memories and to remember and all this stuff, but at the same time, life is about moving forward. And
yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes DPDR makes you believe that is not the case. So
yeah, and like I wouldn't, I spent about 15 years with symptoms that I didn't even know that I had, and so I would say that I was in a fog with depression-like symptoms for about 15 years, and 2 of the 3 years were bad. But I always wanted this. I always said basically, like, rather than go back to where I was, I just wanted to get better, and then like get back on track. I think that those are more relatable, and I would say healthy mindset to be, because again, as you age, you pick up all this wisdom, and again, like that experience of getting better and going through all the depression symptoms and just all the things that you've been through, like that is an important part of your story that you can take with you. And then once you overcome a lot of the again, the healing, the recovery, whatever you want to name it, and you begin to feel better about yourself and feel comfortable in your skin, like it just becomes a unique part of you. And me personally, again, I wish I had not experienced these symptoms somewhat, but again, it makes my story really cool to be able to share with people. And it grounds me. Like it gives me thankfulness that where I'm at now versus just what I experienced before. Like, and I really would have a hard time trading
that. The thing I noticed with this, specifically with DPDR, but panic disorder too, and I guess OCD to a lesser extent, is every single person that gets to the other side of it, even if they're not all the way out, you'll hear people like to use percentages when they refer to their recovery. I'm 80%, I'm 90%, I'm 99.4%, whatever. Even when they're at the point where they realize what they're dealing with is truly just basically an exaggerated anxiety response, the first thing they want to do is help other people that have it. And I think that is because they went through it, so obviously they know how traumatic and scary it can be. But more than that, you want to show people, like, you're, even with tough love, because that's how I communicate. That's my love language, is anger. The thing you want to communicate is that, like, there is no boogeyman. There's nothing there. The worst case scenario is what you're going through right now. the worst thing that happens is this goes from level 9 to level 10. You have a panic attack, the panic attack stops, and that's it. There is nothing else. But you are always thinking, you're always hyper vigilant. Oh God, that feeling is too scary. It's too hard to live with. I don't want to deal with it. You've already done it. You've already done the hardest parts. Like, you're on the mend now. You just need to acknowledge that and be okay with that thought.
All right. So just in your timeline and sequence of events of everything that happened, is there anything like key that I've kind of like skipped over so far that you're like, I want to make sure I talk about, this part? Anything I'm majorly missing right now?
So yeah, the one thing I probably didn't give enough weight to was my conversation with the author of the Depersonalization Manual, Shaun O'Connor. That there is an entire economy online of self-help gurus, anxiety gurus, DPDR gurus, depression gurus. There is a lot of people that are, and I hate to say it like this, but it's true. They are more than happy to profit off your suffering. Now,
right. Absolutely.
That's gonna sound weird when I say what I'm gonna say next, but hear me out. There are a handful of people that I believe truly went through DPDR because there's a language to it. There's a humility you get from it. There is and there's an honesty you get to it from it that you clearly, just for lack of a better word, you don't give a shit anymore. You're just like, I went through the scariest thing. I dealt with the fear of fear. Nothing else is going to faze me. I don't care what you think about me. I'll say what you need to hear. And Shaun was very much like that. He was a lot more compassionate than I am. But I booked a call with him, and I got his manual. Overall, I was out of pocket $400. The call was $299. The manual was $99. So just shy of $400. I would spend that every day for the rest of my life, forever onward, because of what it did for me. And the manual was useful. It was a good reminder to have, but I caught myself going to it for reassurance, which I knew was not a good move. And so I was like, I'll book the call with him, lay out all my symptoms, let him, and he's not a doctor or a psychologist or anything. He's just a guy that went through it. Lay it out with him, let him tell me give me his piece, and then let it go. Forget about it. We spoke for about 90 minutes, and he basically told me again, much nicer, more sugary version of what I said in that Reddit post, which is like, you just have to not get over it, but you have to just kind of let it be there. Like, you're never going to be okay with it. The whole point of the disorder is the feeling that you are literally in mortal danger. Your body is trying to protect you from death. It's hard to ignore that. So you don't ignore it. You acknowledge it. You say, I feel scared out of my mind right now. I'm having a panic attack, or I'm really anxious, or whatever it is, but I can't let that stop me from doing this, because that's going to assign importance to it. And if you do that, your brain is only going to do what you tell it to do. So you have to learn ways to get around it. One of those things that worked for me was I downloaded Tetris on my phone. I play Tetris when I'm feeling really anxious. Let it pass. I get on with whatever I was doing, and it is the closest thing to a magic bullet I've ever found. It's a game of Tetris.
So Tetris is interesting. They actually have a documentary about Tetris called "The Symmetry of Order," and basically it talks about. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Okay, so it's about the child champion from the Nintendo championships that happened in the early 90s, and basically they played Tetris and competed, and this kid basically won. He was like 10 or 11 years old. It talks a little bit about his life, but it talks about the cult following of Tetris, and a lot of these people that play Tetris, they talk about how therapeutic it is, and how it basically it just allows them to offload everything that's on their mind and just allow that RAM of whatever's in their head, like computer RAM, just calculate and do its thing. And then it just moves through their fingers, and it's therapy for them. And then one guy, he passed away. He's a really nice seeming guy, but his name's Jonas Newberger, I think. He worked a lot of things out with his dad, just playing Tetris. Like, his dad was passing away, and it was like favorite pastimes of theirs, and they just talked in I think the hospital room or something like that, and just worked things out. And it just, my opinion is that there was more to it than just playing a favorite pastime together. I think it allowed them to just put aside all the stuff on their mental plate, and it dropped the defense mechanism a little bit and allowed things to flow out. So you saying that's not too unusual for me to hear.
Sure. Yeah, and it makes sense. And when I think back on what Shaun told me, because his game was Mario Kart. He liked to play Mario Kart, but
Okay, yeah.
so cool. You know, I was never big on Nintendo. I was always more of a Sega Genesis nerd, but
Same.
and PlayStation later. But um, for Tetris specifically, I don't even know what compelled me. Because first it was Words with Friends, because I thought maybe the interactive social element would be helpful, but people take a long time to respond. So I was like, I need something more immediate. And Tetris popped up, and I was like, I haven't played Tetris in years. And the first time I played it, I just like it makes you dissociate, but in the way that feels constructive.
Ah, that's interesting.
And I think what you're doing there literally is it's affecting the same part of your brain that if you get dopamine from it when you clear a level or whatever, when you make odd
Yeah.
things fit. But what it does is it also tickles the problem solving part of your brain, the critical thinking, and that is affected directly by DPDR. That turns off in fight, flight, or freeze. All you're doing in that state is trying to survive. So your critical thinking takes back seat. When you force it back on, you're dissociating in a way that you chose to, and you are using critical thinking, and I think that's why it's so effective.
Wouldn't that be wild if Tetris would be an effective treatment mechanism for something like DPDR?
I can only speak anecdotally from my own experience, but between Tetris and tinkering with electronics, I mean, probably more Tetris though. Tetris has been the single most effective way for me to be in an uncomfortable situation way longer than I would have been otherwise. If I'm making food downstairs when I was first really feeling the agoraphobia, I would bring my phone with me, and while I was microwaving food or cooking it or whatever, I'd play Tetris, and I'd be mad when the food would be over or be cooked because I'd be like, fuck, I'm not done playing. So not only do you get through the moment, you're like, well, now I want to stay here longer and finish this out. I want to see this through. And there's an afterglow effect too, where you're okay for a few minutes after you finish. Like you're like, oh, because you're thinking about the game, you're thinking about that, and the brain takes a second to realize you're not doing it anymore. And so you get this kind of this little afterglow. I guess it's the best word for it, but it is effective.
So interestingly enough, playing chess, if you can close your eyes after playing a lot of chess, sometimes you can see the pieces. I don't recommend chess for multiple reasons because it's a tough game. You will never be in the upper 0.0001% of grandmasters. There will always be someone that will crush you. From that documentary, by the way, it's actually a very good documentary. It's worth watching. It's entertaining. But people would talk about how they would close their eyes and they'd still be able to see the pieces, just like chess. But it doesn't go away; it sticks with you.
When I was first having a conversation with one of my buddies downstairs, I was looking at the layout of the kitchen, and my brain just started trying to figure out what Tetris pieces would fit around the counter, or between the cabinets. And I'm just like, normally when you have DPDR, those kinds of thoughts are really scary. But I just sat there. I was sweating. I was really anxious. I was like, that's not a normal thought. But I was also kind of chuckling to myself internally. I was like, this is insane. Like you're so taken by this game that you're now bringing it into reality. And by laughing it off and being like, that's silly, the fear went away. The anxiety started to stop. I was able to control myself better. And I was like, son of a bitch. It's all about its perspective, man. It's such a perspective thing.
So real quick, our first ever sponsor on Two Buds One Shroom is Two Buds One Shroom. I'm taking a moment to say, if you like our content, like the interview so far, like the direction of the project, please like and subscribe. Comment down below. That's awesome engagement, and of course, join our Discord. If you like the idea of supporting a project like this financially, you can become a Patreon member. That'd be great. But hitting that bell, that little subscription bell on YouTube that gives you notification whenever we push out a new video, that's helpful as well. I've been up all night editing, and I'm new to editing, and there's a lot of work that goes into learning and figuring all this stuff out. So it would help my spirit if you did all those things. Let's go back to the interview. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you mentioned some things that helped you from that experience with what was the name of the book again?
Oh, there's a second one I want to mention, but Shaun's was the Depersonalization Manual.
Okay.
The other one that's really good, strangely enough, both these gentlemen are from Ireland. I don't know what the Irish are doing over there, but they're doing something right with DPDR. There's another guy named Barry McDonough, and he wrote a book called The DARE Method, which is also like if you have a fairly modern talk therapist, or maybe sometimes even psychiatrists, that is one of the books they will recommend for people going through a litany of dissociative disorders.
And was there anything necessarily that you picked up from that experience and that material as well that you're like, that needs credit and people need to know about that?
Yeah, repetition. So DARE is an acronym for something. I could pull it up, but I don't want to seem like I'm being like false smart. I hate when people do that. They're like, oh, it's actually called blah, 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 blah. But it's an acronym for something. Don't remember exactly what. But there's repetition. When there's repetition, typically there's truth. And I saw repetition between Claire Weeks, the Disordered podcast, Shaun, and the DARE method, that were all saying the same thing in slightly different verbiage. So when you see the same thing enough times that are coming from sources of, I don't want to say authority, but sources of trust, it holds a certain weight with me. And those things, again, were mostly the tenets of acceptance and commitment therapy. So
interesting.
So yeah.
And I would imagine there is a broken trust that's out there with people that are in the midst of mental health stuff. And again, they turn to their doctors a lot, but when they go to their doctors, they're not feeling heard. They're not feeling, quite frankly, it seems like the experience is a lot of these medications are doled out, but they're not actually ever being taken by the doctors themselves. And they don't really know what it's like to experience these side effects that all of these all these psychotropic medications are and what they do to people.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people just feel like there is no one to trust. I mean, do you have any comment about that, and maybe kind of shine some light on maybe kind of what your experience has been interacting with the medical complex, the doctors, and being in hospitals and all that stuff?
Yeah. Doctors they got kind of the short end of the stick, because when you think about where they're at, and I can only speak to American healthcare, but
right,
when you
Same.
look at what they're paid to do, they're seeing so many people so quickly in such rapid fire succession, and they don't know anything about you aside from what you can tell them. When you're in a disordered state of anxiety or panic or DPDR, you can't really like eloquently describe what it is you're feeling or going through.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
So they'll tell you like, you have anxiety. And you're like, yes, but they're like, you have anxiety. I gotta go. So it seems like some doctors, I think, are maybe a little disillusioned with either the job or mental health, or maybe they see a lot of people who are what do you call those people? Hypochondriacs. I don't know. Every situation, I would imagine, is different. But you have doctors who I think really, really want to help people and really want to hear you. And then you have doctors that are like, I need to get to my next patient. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Here's a prescription. Try it for a week. When it comes to medication side effects specifically, again, and my domain is DPDR. That's all I really can speak on in anxiety. You, like we talked about earlier, your critical thinking is more or less hindered, if not completely turned off, when you're dealing with these disorders. So if you got a side effect from, say, like, I don't know, say you're taking like Benadryl, and you're like, oh, I'm more tired than normal. It's probably because of the Benadryl. When you're in a state of psychological distress and you get psychologically distressing symptoms that are new, you just assume they're from the disorder and not as a result of the side effect from a medication. So a lot of people are, especially on Reddit, I see a lot of people ending up with like anhedonia.
Yes. I would love to interview someone, by the way, with anhedonia, because I follow that subreddit as well, and that one's a unique one.
That's terrifying. Yeah, reading that stuff, I was almost thankful that I was like, I'm glad it stopped where it stopped for me and didn't get to that, because that's truly terrifying. But then you end up with things like tremors. You see that a lot. PVCs, SVCs, heart palpitations, all this kind of stuff that you're like, oh my God, there is something actually wrong with me, because DPDR will often ride passenger with health anxiety. So either that's I'm going crazy or I'm dying or whatever it is, these side effects can make you feel like you're going crazy or you're dying. And you just think you're getting worse. You don't bring it up to the doctor because you don't know if it's a side effect or if it's a native thing. So you end up in this loop, and then you say, well, the drug didn't work for me. And I'm of the mind that this is another hot take. I'm of the mind that there are very, very, very rare instances where medication is required. I think a lot of people, and we're talking like, I'm saying 1 in 100,000, very rare. There are people who genuinely have disorders that are cognitively impairing, that are either lifelong, chronic, but anything that has, and again, this is going to piss so many people off, anything that came on as a result of a traumatic situation, be that a drug interaction or real life trauma, seeing something traumatic, living through something traumatic, complex PTSD, these things had a finite start point that affected your brain in such a way to alter it. But that doesn't mean it cannot be unaltered. You don't need chemicals. You didn't get there with chemicals. I don't believe you need chemicals to go back. So medication at large, I'm not a fan of, especially narcotic stuff, and especially heavy psychotropics. I will admit fully to using hydroxyzine. It's also known as Atarax. It's an antihistamine. It's literally a first generation antihistamine that just makes you tired enough to calm down.
I can do an entire rant about kind of the medical system and kind of how that works, and doctors basically working for hospital systems and having to see so many people that they can't make time for adequate patient care. And again, you can be a good-hearted doctor and want to do better, but the system that they work in is basically a big risk management, a liability management system that protects for-profit medicine. I do agree with you. I think that there are times where medicines are necessary, and again, they can be in unfortunate situations where there are emergencies or severe trauma, complex situations, psychotic breaks, etc. I think that a lot of two bloods, one shroom, and just the approach I encourage patients to consider, an idea of just trying to dampen your symptoms. And I think that there's nutritional options that are out there that can definitely help dial that down. And again, commonly we'll run into people that there is not adequate blood work being done on patients. By the way, I had a prescription ready to go for Wellbutrin before he was willing to do a vitamin D test on me. And I mentioned this in a YouTube video that I did. He said, for your age, you shouldn't be low. And that doesn't make any sense. You can be low at literally any age. And so I was like this close to getting on a medication that was not needed. His approach that he was taking was treating my symptom, and that's not good. And unfortunately, that's what our model is, right? But yeah, that's something that people don't consider. To your point, is it the condition that they have, or is it the medication that they're on?
Right.
And not everyone has complications with their medication. And by no means, I would never consider myself to be anti-medication. I think that medication is a tool, and like even nutrition is a tool, right? It's just a tool that you want to approach carefully because there are potential risks with using that tool. And again, not everyone has side effects. But some people do. And sometimes when people have those side effects, you can't take the risk of running into those side effects lightly because some of them are permanent. And like you said, anhedonia. Unfortunately, there are some people that have had that and the symptoms aren't going away. And that's where I'm like, I really feel that if people maybe give their body some nutrients that may be getting overlooked from a deficiency standpoint, maybe that's the missing ingredient to allow the brain and the body to repair itself. Maybe not overnight, but over time.
I would agree with that.
And my question to you, just in your story, your experience, have you ever had any successes at all with either taking a nutritional approach at all? Have you had any luck with supplements or changing your diet? Did you have any luck with that at all?
Absolutely. And to clarify too, when I was saying the 1 in 100,000 needs medication thing, I meant more from the doctor perspective, not the patient saying, "Hey, I think maybe I need this." It's not that. What I mean is doctors are, like you just outlined, they are much more willing to give you a drug that could potentially have very bad side effects before even checking basic stuff. And I know another big one for men especially is hormone levels, testosterone levels.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, thyroid issues. There's a million things you can check before being like, here's a psychotropic drug, have fun.
Dude, I'll put a list up on the screen right now of all the ones that I think should be in a blood work package.
Yeah.
And because there are things that do get overlooked commonly. And again, it could be as simple as magnesium. And there's no good test for that, unfortunately. And even though they have some tests for it, they'd only show you like 1% of the picture. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. You're dead on the money, though. You're right. The biggest thing for me the last 2 times that I've gone through this, the biggest thing for me was kind of inadvertently switching up my diet, because when you're in DPDR, you're either overeating or undereating. It's very seldom that people stick to their normal diet.
Right.
So I underate a lot, and then I overate a lot. And what I finally landed on was in the morning, I started going on bike rides. And it was more or less just to be outside and to be in the wind and to feel the cold. Cold is like an anxious person's best friend. So I was out there riding my bike. I'd come home and I'd be like, I want eggs and I want bacon, and that's what I'm going to eat, rather than I'm going to eat a toaster strudel or whatever.
Sugar, right?
Right, sugar, carbs, right, bad
sugar
carbs.
and carbs.
And so
bad carbs.
So I ate it was like 3 eggs and 3 pieces of bacon, and that became like a ritual moving forward from there for like 5 years. And it started bleeding through into other parts. I'm like, oh, I want like a turkey wrap instead of a cheeseburger. Or it was these little things where my body was being like, this is what you want and what you actually need, versus I'm just gonna consume calories to feel happy, because you want to enjoy food, obviously, but when you stop paying attention to what you're eating in favor of pleasure versus nutrition, you end up with some issues sometimes. And I was doing that. I was really overweight. So I started working out, riding my bike, doing things, because people were telling me exercise was, medicine. So I believed them. I started doing weights. I started running, riding my bike more, changed up my diet. And I don't know, 90 days in, I had lost weight. I had a dope suntan. I was starting to get physically more toned. I started, I was like, oh, I'm feeling myself. And I went from being afraid to look in mirrors to probably looking in mirrors too often. You're seeing these positive benefits. And
you get that confidence going up.
You
too,
do.
well, like, right?
Yeah. And you're like, I could be afraid, but I'm not today. And when you get that, that is going to make you feel better. Like I would say it's impossible to do all those things, see those improvements in your physical appearance, and not feel better as a result. And obviously exercise is good for, circulation and just everything. So
totally
huge thing. As far as
you're talking to a guy that's first time in my life, I'm like 7 months in to go in at minimum like 3 or 4 days a week, sometimes more. But like it's a boost in confidence. Like, and by the way, there are studies that show that working out is more effective than antidepressants. It has an antidepressant effect, period, for
1000%.
a litany of reasons.
Yeah, and for people that are, you're agoraphobic, you're whatever, you're stuck, you're afraid to leave your room. Don't ever overlook body weight stuff. Do a wall sit, do some push-ups, do some sit-ups. Like, it's gonna suck at first. You're not gonna want to do it. You're gonna get through 1 or 2 and be like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this anymore. But as you stick to it and you get more confident with it and you do more and more and more, it starts to become a little bit addictive. You start wanting to do it. And when you don't, you start to feel like crap. So exercise
yes, absolutely.
Biggest thing, absolutely, diet and exercise. When it comes to supplements, the first one I got on this go around was magnesium glycinate, however you say it. Because I remember the first time it took me too long to figure out, like, oh, magnesium makes you feel more calm. Don't know why, just know it works. So I started doing that. And then another one for brain fog, and this is kind of debated, contested amongst, different crowds, but ginkgo biloba. That really helped.
That one is debated. There's, from what I understand, there's some studies that are kind of conflicting of whether or not it works. And there's one study that was kind of negative, that said, hey, it's possibly associated with cancer. I don't know if that's out of date or if that was just a one-off study or what.
Yeah.
But okay, you've had positive experience with ginkgo. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is too, at that point, I read the label and it was saying it was good for memory. DPDR comes with this, just for a lot of people, it comes with nasty brain fog. Like, standing up out of a chair and turning around and being like, what was I just doing? You literally
Yeah.
forget what you're doing while you're doing it. You'd
Right.
be looking for your phone with your cell phone's flashlight, being like, where the hell did I put my
Where's
phone?
my phone?
Right.
I've done that.
So you're just stuck in that state for, like, indefinitely. And so Ginkgo, whether or not it was psychosomatic or not, whether or not it was a placebo effect, I noticed, like, when I didn't take it, I wouldn't feel as present. I wouldn't feel as in the moment. So it worked for me. I don't know if it'll work for everybody else.
Okay.
And then, like you were talking about earlier, just keeping up with your supplementation. A lot of people that deal with DPDR tend to be younger. It seems to commonly affect like adolescents. But I'm 30. I just turned 36, and I have it. And I know for a fact I was not getting enough vitamin D. I wasn't going outside. I lost all my color. So for sure I wasn't getting enough vitamin D. I was eating like crap. And so I started taking a multivitamin. And under Shaun's advice, actually, he mentioned omega 3 and 6 as being good for allowing the brain to kind of mellow out. He I don't remember what he said exactly, but I think he described it as like a muscle relaxer for your brain.
Just a quick note regarding the omega-3s. Omega-3s are generally tied to positive brain health, and they tend to like, they contain fatty acids, DHAs, EPAs, and essentially people that have advanced diseases like Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, they may benefit from those DHAs at
Oh.
high doses.
Oh.
So interestingly enough, I just learned that not everyone responds positively to omega-3s. Some people actually get omega-3 related depression, which that was a new one for me. So that this is just one of those things where I think people, again, we're talking about these as potential options. We're never rendering medical advice or anything like that. But it's one of those things where if you ever want to pick up supplementation and try some things, you want to try to pick up things like one thing at a time, and then not change too many variables at once, just to be the safest route. And when you try it, see if it trends you in a direction. If it trends you into a positive direction, then great. Maybe what you do is either dial it up a little bit or keep going with it. But sometimes it can have this paradoxical reaction where it just does the opposite.
So, in your opinion, I've had a paradoxical response to a couple different things, but the big one that you see on Reddit, especially a lot of the time, is St. John's wort and ashwagandha. Do you have any background experience with either of those?
So I don't have any background experience with St. John's wort. I've never had it. I just know that there's some potential interactions with it, and I believe it's what they call a cyclic supplement, which means that you may want to pause and cycle on and off it, so to speak. Ashwagandha is one of those ones that I think needs a warning label.
Okay. I would agree with you.
You can talk about your experience. Maybe I can pepper some thoughts in. Well, have
Sure.
you had it before?
I have. So I was taking, I had immediately prior to all this, I moved from, I live in Southern California. I moved from a different part of Southern California about 8, 9, 10, 11, about a year ago now. And right before we moved, I was having all types of digestive issues, which I should have been a red flag for the coming onset of DPDR because it was anxiety-based stuff. But I got a supplement that I didn't know this when I bought it. It was just like, it's a blend. So it had ashwagandha as its kind of base component because that helps digestion. Mm-hmm. So I started taking it, and then I not only did my stomach problems not get any better, I started developing other issues. Like I would start getting obnoxiously sweaty palms to the point where I'd drop things. I started getting tremors. I started having insomnia. I was like, what the hell's going on with me? And I ran out of this stuff, and it was expensive. It's like $80 for a little tin of it. And I ran out of it, and I was like, I can't re-up right now. I'm just going to have to, deal. And everything started going away within like 5 days. And I'm like, what the hell? So I looked up the ingredients, and someone online had linked it back, and they're like, this blend each dose has 250 milligrams of ashwagandha, which is a mild dose. But
yes, it is.
It's more than 0, and I wasn't used to it. So
in my book, I respond very positively to ashwagandha. I like remembering my dreams, and I like vivid dreams, and it helps give me vivid dreams. And whenever I go work out, I tend to work out at night. I come back and take 250 milligrams of ashwagandha, and I'll get really good sleep. So I cycle on and off it. That is one of those supplements that you do want to cycle on and off. You want to take breaks from it, and I think the break schedule is something along the lines of a month and a half on and like 2 weeks or 3 weeks off. Your body can, likes to have a homeostasis. It likes to, find a normal. Well, when you take ashwagandha a lot, it adjusts, and it becomes kind of reliant on your body becomes reliant on it, and it can kind of mess with your cortisol levels, so to speak.
Oh.
So you basically want to take breaks from it. You want to teach your body you can teach your body with ashwagandha that, hey, our stress level is going to go down, and your body's going to hopefully learn, hey, we like a low stress level. But again, you got to take breaks from it. The issue is, other than the fact that you got to take breaks from it and you say cycle on and off it, one, not everyone responds the same way. A lot of people, if you ever go onto the Reddit about ashwagandha, a lot of people talk about their big problems with it. And it's to the point where it's like a 50-50 split. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I'm on the side that loves it. The side that hates it, they have all sorts of problems, like too many to list. If you take it for too long, you get flat emotions. So I worry that people that have added hedonia, either it will make it worse, or people are on track to get hedonia where they just don't feel their emotions.
Whoa.
And then the other thing too is, if you go look at that bag of ashwagandha, I've got the raw powder, right? The bag tells me to take 2 grams of the stuff every day for a normal dose. So,
whoa.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, if it's telling people to take 2 grams of that stuff every day, and there's no warning that, one, that's a really high dose. 2, there's no warning about you should cycle on and off it. People will just take it every day thinking hey, ashwagandha, it's supposed to have these benefits. And they'll take it. Next thing they know, they got problems. And I don't know if those problems are permanent.
That's terrifying. It's so scary.
Yeah. So, by the way, I do have a write-up for ashwagandha on the 2 Buds 1 Shroom Discord of just things that I think that people should know before they ever try things. And there are people that should not try it. There's certain interactions with, I think, medications as well. So in case someone's listening, they want to pop on the 2 Buds 1 Shroom Discord, we do have a write-up about ashwagandha.
So that seems to be one of the ones I see pop up a lot, though. That one and marijuana, man. Can we talk about weed real quick?
Sure can.
Okay. So about 10 years ago, the last time I went through all this, on the back end of it, coming out of it, I had a YouTube channel. I called it Depersonality because I thought I was clever. And I would have basically vlogs where I would discuss like different components of it. And I'd kind of have a freeform thing going, not dissimilar to this. But I would invite people to message me and ask me questions. And I cannot tell you, the world over, I had people from Greece, I had people from Spain, I had people from Italy, all over the place. Probably 75% of the people that would message me got into DPDR after smoking pot and having a panic attack.
Someone that you and I know in common, that fellow that messaged you, his stemmed from marijuana use.
Right. And
one of those little carts from a gas station. First time use.
Those things are so dangerous, dude. I wish those were outlawed. So the issue with that is it's a blessing and a curse, because those people tend to have a much shorter experience with DPDR. It tends to be very transient, and then they get some nasty kind of lingering effects, but the brunt of it seems to end inside of 30 days. I don't know why that is. But when you have people, and I've seen this again in the DPDR forum, there are people in there that will advocate using weed is a big one. CBD, while it's not psychoactive, it's not for everybody. CBD makes you tired sometimes. It does things to you that may mimic the feelings of DPDR. So I took CBD for a while, and it just made everything worse. But yeah, weed is not for everybody at the end of the day. And people that go around and just like sing its praises and all this stuff, I mean, if you have an undiagnosed psychiatric issue, I don't want to scare people and be like, oh, sometimes it presents schizophrenia earlier, or it's a pre-indicator of that. It's just, you have to understand that you are messing with a drug that is going to alter your perception of reality. And if you are already dealing with a disorder where your perception of reality is altered, it's probably a bad fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a supporter of, again, everything's a valid tool, even medications, right? I think that marijuana, psychedelics, they can be valid tools for people. They are not for everyone, as you just said. There are contra indicators, so to speak, in terms of like people that just should not have them, and definitely people that have DPDR where they're struggling to get a sense of themselves or what's around them. That is one of the hard no-goes. And it's just potentially dangerous, and it can worsen the condition. A lot of, like you said, there's a lot of people that are young that have DPDR. And that's kind of what I've been finding too. I think there is definitely something between people that tend to cling to electronic devices and like play games and just this be a lot of their life and not going outside. It would not surprise me if people that had those characteristics are at a much higher risk of getting DPDR amongst other mental ailments, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, especially if it's synthetic versions of, and weed these days is strong. If that is easily kind of like throwing gasoline on the fire, potentially.
To jump back real quick too about supplementation and things people should avoid and not avoid, I have another hot take, and it is that if you drink coffee before you have DPDR, I don't think you should stop drinking coffee when you have DPDR.
Say that again, please.
Yeah. If you develop DPDR or even like chronic anxiety, you start to get stuck in a state of anxiety. One of the things people, and there are psychiatric professionals that will tell you this too, in the beginning stages of it, to avoid caffeine. It is of my thinking that avoiding anything to cope with the situation you're in is not helping your case. The point is not to feel better, right? It's not to always throw a blanket over the fire. Like, you need to, in order to get better, you need to let the fire burn a little bit. And I think if you want to drink coffee, drink coffee. I use creatine every morning. I know creatine can, increase heart rate and all this stuff, or so I've heard.
Yeah, I love creatine too. It is not for everyone. Keep going.
It is not. I have learned that as well. I've heard stories. Creatine works great with me for whatever reason. It's just like it's my happy powder.
It's
so
nice.
I mix 5 milligrams into my coffee, mix it with my protein.
5 grams, by the way.
5 grams, not 5 milligrams.
Yeah.
For the first 4 months I had it, though, I didn't drink coffee, and I was just every morning I'd be depressed. I'd be like, I want to feel tired because I don't want to be anxious, but I also kind of just miss drinking coffee and not giving a crap. And so one day I just started drinking it again, and I noticed that all it really did was make me a little bit more anxious. And I thought, I could be anxious and tired, or I could be anxious and happy.
I think a part of getting better, again, there is some decisions that have to be made that are necessary in order for you to make positive changes to kind of get through and recover, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can make too many changes at once. And I've got someone that I speak to regularly that tried to also cut out nicotine. And again, smoking's not good. Vaping with nicotine can have potential benefits or potential negative consequences as well. But again, you're going through a lot already. Why would you really up the ante, so to speak? If anything, you're in this delicate stage where you are needing some good, positive, healthy, sustainable changes that's going to yield good results. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. And I think it just sometimes makes sense to hold on for those things just a little bit longer. And then once you get to that point of stability and you're making these small changes and you're like, hey, I'm doing it, then maybe evaluate making that change, right?
Right. And I think what happens too, this happened on Reddit, was sometimes when I say things, I realize I say things that sound very blanket statement-y, very generalized, but you got to do with I use nicotine too. I've been taking little pot shots of my vape here and there, but like you just said, you got to kind of pick your battles, right? So if you have something that's like caffeine for most people is not super damaging. A lot of people are addicted to coffee, and that's fine. If you want to stop it because you truly can't tolerate the feeling, and you're like, hey, this is interrupting my recovery. But if it's one of those things that you are avoiding because you are afraid of what it will make you feel like, that's a problem. That's a different thing.
That's key.
That's my opinion, of course, but
right.
Yeah, you want to kind of lean into the fire, dude. Like that's kind of the whole point. You need to be in a triggered state to work through being in a triggered state. It's the only, you can read all you want, you can take whatever drugs you want, but if you're not teaching your brain in a live fire situation, it's never going to learn.
To wrap up whenever we do interviews on a patient perspective here, I've got some standardized questions I think are going to be fun to ask you. And it's like, what are your two things, right? So the first question I've got for you, Ryan, is what are your two go-to life hacks that you use all the time?
Okay. I will give you two rapid fire short answers for that.
Sure.
In the moments of, and again, DPDR is my field. So I'll say for DPDR, my two life hacks are always keep ice water on hand.
Okay.
And don't believe all your thoughts. When you are in a normal state, when you're on the recovery, when you're on the mend, it is to my life hacks, I guess. This is more kind of advice, but the life hacks would be look for the bad days and do not celebrate good days or bad days. Just acknowledge that you're just living life.
Okay. And hey, just out of curiosity, why ice water? Is that have just a calming effect and cool you down? And again, heat can sometimes make you feel anxious.
So there's a thing called the mammalian dive reflex. When they do it in DBT and TIP and stuff. When you submerge your face in ice water and hold your breath, it slows your heart rate down. And in PVC, like heart situations, heart crises of the heart, a lot of the time, and I think they did this on like ER or something, but they will literally dump patients' faces into a vat of ice water and hold them there while they hold their breath. And it will force, no matter who you are, everybody responds the same to this. Your heart rate will slow down. When your heart slows down, your adrenaline reuptake slows down, and you will stop panicking. It also snaps you back into reality because cold water, that's literally cold water to the face. It's going to bring you back into your body. So if you need to stop a panic attack quickly, dump ice water on your face and hold your breath, and it'll cut it short.
Oh, I actually did not know that. And so just as an aside, if I go into my shower and blast the cold water on, I would imagine my heart rate would go up.
Yes.
Is it? So you're saying that it would in the long term go back down? Is that what you're saying?
No. So the difference between being in a cold shower and having cold water to your face is that your entire body is in cold water. You have a lot more nerve endings throughout your body. And when you're blasted with cold water, your body's like, oh shit. But when you're putting it on your face, it's a very specific response. And the thought behind it is your body will always choose to survive in water versus fight on land. So if you're in fight or flight and you're suddenly in ice water, your body's priority becomes to preserve you. So it will slow down your heart rate, allowing you to withhold oxygen longer.
Okay. Yeah. I'm glad that I asked because I did not know any of that.
Yep. Mammalian dive reflex. Look it up.
Okay. So the other thing too that I would add to your answer is play Tetris.
Oh yeah, of course, dude. Of course, play Tetris.
What are your two nuggets of wisdom that shifted your paradigm and kind of navigating life?
Coming out of it, you mean? Coming out of the DPDR?
This could be with anything. It's just things that you've kind of picked up from other sources that you're like, dude, that's really sharp, and it just kind of changed your perspective.
Yeah. The two things I will say, DPDR a lot of the time can come from previous trauma, and trauma comes with certain personality archetypes. So I would say, for me, the two big ones were learn to say no. Don't be a people pleaser.
Okay, let's go.
If it makes you uncomfortable, Don't do it. And the other one would be learn to stop. You don't always need to be going. You don't always need to be running around. Learn to stop. Learn to breathe.
Okay. Do you have two favorite quotes that you find yourself like applying daily that are like, kind of impossible for you to forget?
Yeah, hardwired into my memory. What you resist persists. I love that one.
Okay.
The more you push it away, the more it's going to be there. And then the other one is from a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And the quote is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I love that.
Ooh, that's actually a really good one. I like that one too. Excellent. What two skills are you developing right now and like working on most in your life?
The first one is being more honest. I tend to hide things and keep things to myself a lot of the time, and then as a result of that, you lie, you omit truths, and you tend to change the events of things so that maybe other people aren't indicated in potentially negative situations. So honesty. The other one is being more okay with feeling bad emotions, like allowing myself to feel depression, fear, sadness, not trying to immediately pull back and run away from it.
So the first one you said about being honest, that's a big deal. That one resonates with me a lot because I mean, quite frankly, when I started feeling bad, I started lying a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of that lying was a result of just trying to hide from others that I wasn't feeling good about myself.
Yeah, 100%.
And you just kind of develop this thing where you just duck and weave to kind of escape people learning the truth about how bad you're really feeling. That's what I
Yeah.
went through.
You become a chameleon. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a really good one. Okay, so what are two game-changing moments from that happened in your personal mental health?
Okay, so I'm going to draw both of these from this most recent episode because they were, I mean, they weren't profound, but they were, they etched the memory of themselves in pretty well. The first one was after I learned about that the ice water thing. I was laying in bed and I remember I was like really trying to have a panic attack. Like I really wanted to have one so I could test it. And no matter what I did, I could not force myself to panic. I would like look at my hands. I would stare in the mirror. I would do anything I can. I'm like, come on, dude, panic. And no matter how hard I tried, I could not make myself panic. And then I laid down and I was like, all right, screw it. I'm just forget about it. I don't care. I was there for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I felt this. There's a distinct shot of heat that happens when you get an adrenaline burst, and I felt that go off, and then everything started looking fake. And I literally sat up in bed and I was like, am I panicking? And I realized as I had this conversation with myself, I was like, you had to acknowledge that you were panicking. So maybe it's not as automatic as you think. Maybe you do have more of a hand in it than you thought you did. Panic. I don't want to say panic is a choice because that's gonna piss everybody off, and it's not entirely true. But how you respond to the feeling of panic is a choice. That was a big one.
Ooh, that's cool.
The other one is that the most uncomfortable thing, the thing that you fear the most, the thing that makes you sweat, the thing that keeps you up at night, go do it and do it twice if you have to. Like go run into the thing, run into the storm, no clothes on, just run in. Because you're going to see when you get through it and you survive it that it's never as bad as you thought it was going to be, and that's how you grow. That's how you get past this.
Oh yeah, I read that in a book about stoicism. I forget the name of the book, but it's basically like I think the example they provided was like you are on a subway train and you just start saying out loud or start singing out loud, and people that did that, what they imagined in their head was the worst thing that could happen just didn't happen. And
Right.
they're like, oh. So the last one, and then we're going to be wrapped up here. So the last question is, what two things do you think that people need to know or keep in mind that are experiencing DPDR, depression, or just any other symptoms and want to recover?
Okay. The first one is going to be that the hardest part about this entire disorder is that you are not experiencing it through your logical mind. You're experiencing it through the lens of someone in an anxious, disordered state. So your brain right now is but your brain is primarily acting as a threat analysis machine. That is its primary function in life normally, but you don't typically pick up on it because you're busy living. But right now you are so hyper-focused on that every little thing that you're afraid of is going to seem amplified 100-fold because your brain is saying, that might be dangerous, let's not do it. But your world is going to get really small if you listen every time. So just remember that everything you're experiencing, for the most part, is an exaggerated version of what it actually is. And that's hard to make succinct with everything with this damn disorder. It's so hard to verbalize it. But just know that what you're experiencing is just a state of anxiety, and you are experiencing it through a lens of anxiety. The other thing is, let's round this off with one more hot take. There has never been ever a permanent state of DPDR. It has never happened. It always ends. It will always end. And
nice.
People can say that I've had it for 40 years. I've had it for however long. You haven't, though. You've had it in waves. You've had it in episodes. It has not been there the entire time. And there was a particular guy that was pretty adamant that he'd had it for the last 25 years or whatever. And he argued with me on Reddit about it. And I was like, listen, I don't want to diminish your experience. I don't know you. You know, maybe you're the exception to the rule. Maybe you're the first. But it is a survival state that your brain does not want to be in. The reason you feel so shitty is because your brain does not want to be stuck like that. It also wants to get better. So let it. Just let it. Be okay with being afraid. If you want to sum all this up, you have to be okay with being afraid. You can be scared and be okay.
Nice. All right, man. Well, look, appreciate you coming on, being our first ever guest. And everyone out there, thanks for tuning in. Keep trying the best you can. Keep paying good things forward, y'all. Ryan, appreciate it so much.
Thanks so much, Tim. I appreciate it, man.